Hey, what's up, guys? Scott here, back once again with another video. And today I'm going to be doing another Marvel topic. Surprise, surprise, because I love Marvel. um, today I'm going to be doing a villain comparison between Magneto and Thanos. Arguably two of the most iconic villains ever. Not just in comics or superhero circles, but of all time. In film and just fiction overall. Two of the most iconic characters, villains ever created. So, this video I'm going to be kind of breaking down their backstory, more specifically in the films, but I'll talk a little bit about them in comics too. And like their backstory and how their arcs have played out and things like that. So, anyway, let's get started. So, Magneto first appeared in comics in X-Men issue number 1. And no surprise there. And then Thanos first appeared in comics, really, in Captain Marvel issue number 26. Now, I think this was back when Carol Danvers wasn't Captain Marvel at that point, because that didn't happen until the last 10 years or so. This is back when Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel back then in the comics, and Captain Marvel was actually Marvel, who was a guy. And then later on in the comics, he passed away, but passed the mantle of Captain Marvel to Carol. But at the point when Thanos is introduced in the comics, Captain Marvel was Marvel and Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. So, just a little tidbit there. But anyway, so both of these characters, villains, have been around a long time in the comics. Magneto debuted first, over 10 or so years before Thanos even debuted in the comics. So, Magneto's been around a little longer. And I would argue that Thanos didn't become near as popular as he is until the Marvel Cinematic Universe started. I mean, yeah, your hardcore comic book fans have always known about Thanos and stuff. But I would argue Thanos didn't become as popular as he is today until the MCU, which really catapulted the popularity of his character up. Whereas I would say Magneto has been more popular for a longer time in comic books and just a more popular character in general. And he was in movies way before Thanos was. So Magneto's been popular longer, and Thanos' popularity didn't really soar until the MCU came along. But anyway, so they're both from Marvel Comics. Magneto is primarily an enemy of the X-Men, and Thanos is primarily an enemy of the Avengers. Now, because, each team, how each individual superhero has their own arch nemesis, like Batman has Joker, Captain America has Red Skull, so on, so on. These two villains are more like team arch enemies, where, X-Men's arch enemy is Magneto most of the time, and then one of the Avengers' arch enemies as a team is Thanos. And the others, I would say, are probably Ultron and Kang, in the comics at least. Loki is kind of both. He's both an enemy to Thor and an enemy to the Avengers as a whole. But Thanos is definitely what I would call a team arch enemy of the Avengers. So. But also at points in the comics, they've also both teamed up with the Avengers and the X-Men, depending on if there's a larger threat or something. Albeit uneasily, but there has been times where Thanos and Magneto have teamed up with the good guys on occasion in the comics to fight a larger threat or something. Oh, and one other thing. Both of these villains have also fought the others' teams in the comics. In Marvel Comics, I would say you have 3 main superhero teams. You have the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. Thanos and Magneto have fought all 3 of them on occasion, so throughout the history of comics. So that's kind of their comic backstory. Now, they have both been adapted really well, in my opinion, into film. Magneto through the great Sir Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender. And Thanos primarily through Josh Brolin, all great actors. And their performances are what helped sell those characters over in live action. Not just acting, but the writing and stuff. But those actors, their performances and what they did with the script and stuff really, catapulted those villains to popularity. So now let's get into I'm going to be talking about their film versions. Excuse me. So, let's do Magneto first. Magneto, I would call Magneto definitely a victim of tragedy. He's a Holocaust survivor. at least in most continuities, he's a Holocaust survivor, who's also a mutant that can control metal. And so he survived the Holocaust, and he sees, in the modern day, he sees what's happening to mutants as the same thing, kind of, and he wants that to never happen to his kind again. So he's going to do whatever it takes in his mind to prevent that from happening again. Through violent means and stuff like that. Whereas Professor Charles Xavier believes that humans and mutants can coexist peacefully, whereas Magneto doesn't believe that. And we'll get into some movie scenes later that I have where it really illustrates these villains' mindsets. So he's determined to protect mutant kind at all costs, even if it means really violent methods. And that's why he constantly comes into conflict with the X-Men and stuff. Thanos, MCU Thanos, because comic book Thanos is way different. Comic book Thanos is way different from one of the MCU Thanoses. So, technically, you have two versions of each of these villains. You have Sir Ian McKellen's Magneto and then Michael Fassbender's Magneto, who are, despite being Michael Fassbender playing a younger version, they're pretty much the exact same. Like their mindset, their mentality, motivations, their mannerisms, pretty much the exact same. Whereas in the MCU, you technically have two very different but both bad Thanoses. You have Infinity War Thanos, who wants to get the Infinity Stones to wipe out half of all life in the universe, because he believes it's in danger of overpopulation, because his planet Titan was wiped out by overpopulation. At least so he says. It never really goes into detail about why there was overpopulation, or it really never goes deep into his backstory. All we hear is what he always knows, what he tells us, and who knows? I mean, he could have been lying about some of it, maybe, but he saw this horrible thing happen to his planet, and he's like, I gotta stop this from happening to the whole universe. So he develops this Messiah complex, where he's gonna save all the other planets he can in the whole universe from overpopulation by wiping out half of all life. But the problem is that in doing that, he never even stops to consider, these planets may be doing just fine on their own. It never really says why his planet was in that situation. I mean, these other planets may be doing just fine, but he doesn't think about that. He's like, no, all planets are suffering from this. I need to do something about it. And also, he has no remorse for the consequences of his actions. Like when he does succeed in getting the Infinity Stones and doing the snap, and wipes out half of all life in the universe, we see a little bit of it. You have helicopter crashes, plane crashes, car wrecks. So, because I guarantee you, more than half of the people he snapped died because of the snap, because of all the accidents and stuff. So he has no concept or no remorse for those consequences, and he gets to go live on his little garden planet he's prepared, where he has plenty of food for himself. By the way, hypocrite. Why couldn't he use the stones or to build farm equipment, or help double food and more food production, or he thinks genocide is the only solution, which is totally wrong. His mindset is so wrong, but he's so convinced that he's right. That's what makes him so dangerous. So that Infinity War Thanos is definitely bad, but it's more of like he's so his ego is so big, and he's so enamored that what he's doing is right. He has no concept or remorse for the consequences. But he still has plenty of food for himself when the snap's over. Anyway, that's Infinity War Thanos. Definitely bad, but now we get to Endgame Thanos. Now, Endgame Thanos is more like how he is in the comics. He's a lot more vicious, stern, bloodthirsty. Because he talks about in the film, the first time we see him in an Endgame, he's just come back from slaughtering a species with his sword, and which we never saw that with Infinity War Thanos, and he seemed to have enjoyed slaughtering that species, and then later when he comes to invade Earth, he tells the Avengers, I'm going to destroy your planet. I'm going to enjoy it very, very much. And so he, Endgame Thanos is just more genocidal. He was more evil intent. And then he's going to destroy the universe and remake it in his image, which is just totally wrong too. I mean, instead of accepting the flaws in his plan and be like, hey, you know what, genocide wasn't the right option. I'm gonna maybe work with these people to help them bounce back, or help them grow more resources. No, he's like, now I'm just gonna wipe out everything, which is even worse than Infinity War Thanos. So both Thanoses are definitely bad, but the Endgame Thanos was more bloodthirsty and more like, I'm gonna enjoy doing what I'm about to do. So yeah. Now Magneto, his problem is that he's so convinced that he has to do whatever it takes to protect mutant kind that he's become the exact thing that he's proclaimed to fight against or hate. He has become a tyrant. He's become a supremacist, and then now we can get to these scenes that are taken from their movies, and we really get into the flaws of these villains' mindsets. So first, let's go to Magneto. There's two scenes I got from Magneto. There's one. This is Michael Fassbender's Magneto. There's one scene where he's talking with Charles Xavier, and I remember distinctly Charles says, "This will not bring you peace, my friend." And Magneto says to Charles, "Peace was never an option." So and this is really before he even became Magneto. So right there, like, that shows that he's on this warpath, and he really can't be reasoned with, and he's so blinded by hatred and stuff that he's becoming the very thing that he hates. And no matter how many innocent people he has to enslave or wipe out, if it messes with his vision of mutant protection, his vision of mutant protection has become mutant superiority, which is what he's claiming to fight against. So there's kind of a dyad, a double-edged thing. And then another scene this is X-Men The Last Stand in McKellen's Magneto. He's giving a speech in the woods to the Brotherhood, and he says, like, we need to rid this planet of this disease called Homo sapien. So, and any mutant that stands in our way, we will use this poison against them. So he's already said that he's going to destroy or take out any mutant that disagrees with him. So Magneto has become the very thing he's claimed to fight against, which makes him a bad guy, right? Both of these villains are hypocrites and are doing bad things for a good reason, but they believe is a good reason, but it's actually a bad reason because their egos won't let them see their wrongs. Now Thanos, I got two scenes from him. One is in Infinity War, he's talking with Gamora, talking about wiping out half of her species. And he says, I wiped out half the population, but it's a paradise. And now we never saw Gamora's planet after he wiped out half the population. He says it's a paradise, but if his definition of paradise is the condition Earth and all the other planets were in after he wiped out half the population, then that ain't no paradise. After the snap, Earth was in ruins. I mean, people were mourning. They were rebuilding, but I mean, it was a wreck everywhere. So, his ego, and he keeps using the word I. In a lot of his speeches, he uses the term I. I know what's best. My way is the only way. I know what's best. That's an egocentric maniac. And he can't or won't see what he's doing is bad. So, and the other scene is kind of the same thing where he talks. This is Endgame Thanos. He's talking with Captain America, Iron Man, Thor before the big final battle, and he's like, I thought by eliminating half of life, but you've shown me that's impossible. He's not willing to compromise. He thinks genocide is the only solution. So both of these villains are very well written, very well acted, but their biggest flaw, what makes them these villains is their egos and refusal to see reason, and then the hypocrisy of their actions and reasoning and stuff. So Now that being said, I like both of these villains. I think they're both done very well in films and in comics, and I hope we see them again going forward in the MCU and stuff. So, anyways, that's kind of a breakdown and comparison of Magneto and Thanos and kind of the flaws of their thinking and what makes them villains. So that's what I was able to gather from it. So, hope you enjoyed the video, guys. We are 8 days away from Deadpool and Wolverine. 8 days because it'll premiere next Thursday. I cannot wait to see I cannot wait to see who's gonna be in this movie. I think this movie's gonna be great. Anyway, guys, and I plan on doing a review for it too. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and peace out.